He had nothing left but the clothes on his back and the silent weight of failure pressing against his chest. Thrown out of Europe after years of chasing a dream that slipped away, he stepped into a world that felt colder than any winter he had known. The streets were not kind, and neither was life. But this story is not only about a fall, it is about a meeting that would shake his beliefs and, in time, stir the hearts of thousands. If you want to hear stories that will challenge what you think you know about the world, then subscribe now and stay with me until the end of this one. The journey began on a dusty road in West Africa, where the young man's footsteps echoed his confusion. He had been away for so long that the air felt unfamiliar, yet each breath carried the scent of home. His name was Karim. His years in Europe had been filled with promises, jobs that never lasted, and friends who disappeared when the storms came. Now, as he returned, there was no celebration, only silence from the village he had left behind. People whispered about his return, some with pity, some with judgment. Karim kept walking, his eyes fixed on the ground, until a convoy of vehicles stopped ahead of him. The man who stepped out was unlike anyone Karim had ever met. Tall, with sharp eyes that seemed to cut through pretense, Ibrahim Traoré carried himself with a kind of calm that came from living for something larger than himself. His clothes were simple, but there was something about his presence, unshakable, steady, like the ground beneath one's feet. Karim had heard his name before, spoken in hushed tones in cafes and shouted in crowded markets. Some called him a visionary, others called him a troublemaker. Karim stood frozen as Ibrahim walked toward him. People in the crowd began to move closer, sensing that something was about to happen. Karim's mind raced. Why would a leader stop for a stranger? Why would a man with a nation's weight on his shoulders turn his attention to someone who had nothing? Ibrahim's voice was steady when he spoke, but the words hit Karim with the force of a storm. "I heard you returned," Ibrahim said. "Tell me, what did Europe teach you?" Karim wanted to answer, but his voice failed him. The memories came rushing back. The nights he had gone without food, the long hours of work for wages that never came, the way strangers had looked at him like he was nothing. "It taught me," Karim finally said, "that a man without roots is a man without peace." Ibrahim studied him for a long moment before placing a hand on his shoulder. "Then perhaps it is time you plant new ones here." The crowd watched as Ibrahim took off his scarf and placed it around Karim's neck, a simple gesture, yet one that seemed to carry meaning no one could fully explain. Karim felt the warmth of the fabric, but more than that, he felt something he had not felt in years: dignity. Little did he know, this moment would travel far beyond the dusty road where it happened, and before long, people he had never met would be speaking his name. But in that instant, he could only wonder, why him? Why now? And what would happen next? Karim could feel the eyes of the crowd burning into him, but he did not dare look around. The scarf on his shoulders seemed to weigh more than its cloth. It was as if Ibrahim had placed a question there, one Karim was not ready to answer. Ibrahim stepped back, his gaze steady, as if he already knew what was coming next. Without another word, he turned and began walking toward his vehicle. But then, halfway there, he stopped and looked back. "Come with me," he said. It was not a request. It was an invitation wrapped in authority. Karim hesitated. He had returned to his homeland with no plan, no direction, and certainly no reason to follow a leader whose world was so far from his own. Yet something in Ibrahim's tone made him take that first step. As he walked toward the vehicle, murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some people smiled knowingly, others frowned with suspicion. Karim climbed into the back seat, his heart pounding, his mind spinning with questions. The car moved through narrow streets and open fields, past markets buzzing with voices, and villages where children chase each other barefoot. Ibrahim spoke little, choosing instead to watch the land roll by. Finally, his voice broke the silence. "You know, Karim, they will tell you I am too young to lead. They will tell you I am dangerous. But what they will not tell you is that danger is sometimes the only path to change." Karim listened carefully, unsure if Ibrahim was speaking to him as a friend, a student, or a test. They arrived at a modest compound guarded by a few men who greeted Ibrahim with quiet respect. Inside, the air was cooler, the walls lined with shelves of books and maps of Africa with handwritten notes. Ibrahim motioned for Karim to sit. "I do not help people because they are strong," Ibrahim said. "I help them because I believe they can become strong." He leaned forward. "Tell me, Karim, do you want to rebuild what life took from you, or do you want to build something new? The question cut deep. Karim thought about the years he had spent chasing approval in Europe, the constant struggle to prove his worth in a place that never wanted him. Building something new sounded impossible, yet there was something in Ibrahim's voice that made it feel within reach. I do not know if I can, Karim admitted. Ibrahim's lips curved into a faint smile. That is why you will. For the rest of the evening, Ibrahim spoke of roads that needed building, schools that needed teachers, and villages that needed hope. But there was something he did not say, something Karim sensed. Ibrahim was preparing him for a role far larger than he imagined. And as the night grew darker, so did the questions in Karim's mind. Why had Ibrahim chosen him? Was it chance, or had this meeting been set in motion long before he returned? Karim did not know yet, but he was about to find out in a way that would leave him shaken. The next morning, Karim awoke to the sound of footsteps outside his door. The air was still, heavy with the scent of burning wood from a nearby kitchen. He stepped out into the courtyard and found Ibrahim speaking with two men dressed in worn but dignified clothing. Their eyes shifted to Karim as if measuring him for something he could not yet see. Ibrahim waved him over. Karim, he said, you will travel with him today. Karim frowned. Where? Ibrahim's answer was calm but carried weight. To a place where hope is a memory. The journey was long, the road uneven. They passed villages that seemed frozen in time, where the laughter of children masked the thinness of their bodies. Karim felt uneasy, as if the scarf on his shoulders had become heavier with every mile. Eventually, they arrived at a settlement on the edge of a dry riverbed. The houses were made of cracked mud bricks, their roofs patched with sheets of rusted metal. Women moved quietly, their faces drawn, their eyes fixed on the ground. One of the men turned to Karim. Do you know why you are here? Karim shook his head. The man pointed toward a group of children gathered under a dying tree. They have no school. No one will teach them. And no one will fight for them unless someone decides to start today. Karim looked at the children. Their faces were a mixture of suspicion and fragile curiosity. One boy, barefoot and holding a stick, stared at Karim without blinking. Karim felt something stir inside him, a mix of shame and responsibility. But before he could speak, a voice rose from behind. An older man, his clothes worn thin, approached. We have heard promises before, he said bitterly. Leaders come, they talk, and then they leave. Why should we believe you are any different? Karim opened his mouth but found no words. He looked at Ibrahim's men, expecting them to answer, but they remained silent. The truth struck him. This moment was his test, not theirs. Slowly, he stepped forward. I cannot promise what I do not yet know I can give, he began, his voice unsteady. But I know what it feels like to be forgotten. I know what it feels like to watch the world move while you stand still. And I will not leave until we move together. The older man studied him for a long time before nodding once and walking away. Karim's heart was racing. Somewhere deep inside, he felt the ground shift, as if his life had taken a turn he had not chosen, but could no longer avoid. Later that night, under the dim light of a single lamp, one of Ibrahim's men handed Karim a folded piece of paper. Read it alone, he said. Karim unfolded it and found only 7 words written in bold ink. You are here for more than you think. It was unsigned, and that was what made it unsettling. You said. Karim sat on the edge of the small bed, staring at the paper as if it might reveal more if he just looked long enough. The 7 words circled in his mind, refusing to fade. Who had written them? Why now? And what exactly did more mean? Sleep did not come easily that night. He kept thinking about the children under the dying tree, about the suspicion in the old man's eyes, and about Ibrahim's silence when Karim had spoken. It was as if every person around him knew something he did not. Before dawn, a knock at the door pulled him from his restless thoughts. One of the same men from yesterday stood there, his face unreadable. Get ready, he said. You will see something important today. Karim followed without question, though the unease in his chest deepened. The path they took was narrow and winding, cutting through fields of dry grass until they reached the edge of a hill. Below lay a cluster of homes, their roofs glinting faintly in the weak morning light. But it was not the homes that caught his attention. It was the wall. A high, crumbling wall stretched along one side of the settlement, with strange markings etched deep into its surface. The man spoke quietly. During the last conflict, families were forced to leave this place. Those markings are the names of the ones who never returned. Karim moved closer, running his fingers along the rough stone. Some of the names had faded almost completely. He thought about how easily a life could vanish from memory. As they walked further into the settlement, Karim noticed the people staring. They did not greet him, but they did not turn away either. It was the same mix of guarded hope and silent warning he had felt the day before. A woman stepped forward, carrying a bundle wrapped in cloth. Without a word, she handed it to him. Inside was a small, hand-carved wooden bird. Karim looked at her in confusion. She met his gaze for only a moment before saying, "We give this to those who choose to stay." Then she turned and walked away. He wanted to ask what she meant, but the man beside him began moving toward a gathering at the center of the settlement. A crowd had formed around a makeshift platform. Standing there, to Karim's surprise, was Ibrahim. His voice carried over the group, calm yet charged with something electric. "We are being told to wait for help," Ibrahim said, "but help is just a word unless someone decides to act." He scanned the crowd before his eyes landed on Karim. This man returned to us with nothing, yet today I ask him to take on something far heavier than what he lost. The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Karim's pulse quickened. Ibrahim was not speaking in riddles anymore. He was pulling Karim into something without giving him the chance to step back. And deep down, Karim sensed that whatever was coming next was going to change him in a way that could never be undone. Ask ChatGPT. Karim felt every eye fixed on him, their stares heavy with both expectation and doubt. His throat tightened, but before he could gather his thoughts, Ibrahim continued. "This is not about one man's redemption. This is about whether we choose to stand still or move forward together." The words were simple, but they carried the weight of a challenge. Ibrahim's hand motioned for Karim to join him on the platform. Karim climbed the wooden steps, his legs unsteady. From this height, he could see the settlement in its entirety, the worn roofs, the cracked walls, the children gathered near the edge, watching as if this moment might decide something far bigger than themselves. Ibrahim stepped aside, giving him space to speak. Karim knew that whatever he said here would either plant roots or burn bridges. He took a slow breath. "I do not come here as a leader," he began, his voice low but steady. "I come here as someone who knows what it is to be abandoned. I know the weight of promises that never arrive, and I know that waiting can sometimes be the slowest way to lose everything." A few heads nodded in the crowd, but others still looked wary. "I cannot rebuild your homes overnight. I cannot give you everything you need tomorrow, but I can stand with you now, and I can fight with you until we do not have to fight anymore." The murmurs shifted, softer now, though uncertainty lingered. Ibrahim stepped forward, placing his hand on Karim's shoulder. "Then you will start today." Before Karim could ask what that meant, one of Ibrahim's men brought forward a folded map. The paper was worn, its edges frayed, marked with circles and arrows. Ibrahim opened it for all to see. There is a road that connects this settlement to the nearest market. It has been broken for years, blocked by the remnants of old battles. Traders do not come here because they cannot. If we clear it, the village can trade, earn, and survive. His gaze moved to Karim. "You will lead that work." Karim's stomach tightened. He had never led anything in his life. The idea of organizing an entire settlement to rebuild a road seemed impossible. "Why me?" he asked. Ibrahim's reply was quiet but certain. "Because you are the only one here who has nothing to gain except the future." The crowd was silent. Some studied Karim with fresh interest, others with deep skepticism. But then, from somewhere near the back, the old man who had doubted him on the first day spoke up. "If he is willing to work, I will work with him." That single statement seemed to ripple through the crowd. A few others nodded. Karim realized there was no turning back. The scarf around his neck felt warmer now, as if it carried not just Ibrahim's gesture, but the weight of an unspoken promise. And yet, somewhere deep in his chest, a quiet fear remained, because if this road failed, it would not only be the settlement's hope that crumbled, but his own place among them. Ask ChatGPT. The next morning, the settlement awoke earlier than usual. Men gathered with rusted tools, women carried baskets of water and food, and children stood at the edges, curious to see if the road everyone talked about would finally open. Karim stood at the front, holding the worn map Ibrahim had given him. The air was thick with dust and doubt. He could feel it in the way some people avoided his eyes. The first stretch of road was overgrown with thorn bushes, the ground littered with stones and twisted metal from vehicles long abandoned. Karim bent down, picked up a rusted fragment, and turned it in his hands. It was a reminder that this path had once been alive. People had walked it, traded on it, depended on it. Now, it was nothing but a scar. He began clearing the debris alongside the others, his hands quickly blistering. The work was harder than he imagined. The sun rose higher, burning the backs of their necks, but still they pushed forward. By midday, they had opened a small section of the road. It was not much, but it was enough to stir a flicker of hope. Then, as they reached a bend, Karim spotted something half buried under a mound of earth. He knelt, brushing away the date, and uncovered a rusted tin box. The others gathered around as he forced it open. Inside were yellowed papers, letters, receipts, and one photograph of a man in military uniform standing beside a destroyed truck. The edges were burned. An older woman gasped when she saw it. "That was my brother," she whispered. "He died here." She took the photograph with trembling hands and walked away without another word. The crowd fell silent. The road was no longer just a path. It was a graveyard of memories. As the day wore on, fatigue began to set in. Some people suggested stopping and continuing another time, but Karim pushed forward. "If we stop now, we will not return," he said firmly. "Every day this road stays broken. It tells the world we have accepted our place at the edge." His voice carried more strength than he felt inside, but it was enough to pull a few reluctant workers back into motion. By sunset, they had cleared a stretch long enough for a cart to pass. The air felt different. Lighter, but also charged with something unspoken. Ibrahim arrived just as they were finishing. He studied the road, then looked at Karim. "You found something today, did you not?" Karim hesitated. "We found a photograph." Ibrahim's eyes narrowed slightly, as if the answer carried more meaning than Karim understood. "Keep it," he said. "It may matter more than you think." As night fell, Karim sat alone with the photograph beside him. The man in the picture was a stranger, yet there was something haunting in his stare. Something that made Karim wonder if clearing the road was only the beginning, and if the real reason Ibrahim had brought him here was buried far deeper than anyone had told him. "You said,"